Well, welcome boys and girls. Today it's the 99th episode of the Dr. G Show. And hopefully next week we're supposed to have Holly back on for the 100th episode. And we're going to figure out what we're going to talk about. So it'll be interesting to have Holly back. It's been a long time. We've had lots of special guests since then, but back then, back in the day, it was called Dr. G and the Boss, and Holly was the boss. So, as you guys come on, thank you guys for joining. There's Marcia, and hey Marcia. And today we're going to talk about something we would call eating on the wild side, how to maximize the nutrition. So, we've talked about a lot of things over the last 99 episodes, right? A lot of conditioned stuff, but I wanted to talk about food a little bit more directly and kind of how we prepare food, how we pick food. And there's a great book called Eating on the Wild Side, and it's from Jo Robinson. And she is got an amazing book. I think there are 3,000 studies maybe that went into this. I listened to it on NPR, I think Science Friday maybe, and it's really great. So it's the missing link to optimal health, but really it's a way of looking at what we buy as food, how we prepare our food, and it's kind of amazing because I had some of these thoughts in my head before because we have these general ideas that we talk about as far as eating the rainbow. We talk about trying to eat as many colors as possible, like the Skittles of nature, but not Skittles, and how that maximizes the nutrition that's just kind of built into the food. So first I want to talk about colors. So we'll go through and we'll look at some charts in here, which is pretty awesome. In fact, when we talk about eating on the wild side, last week when we had Carrie on there from Australia, we actually were talking about eating nature, and there's astronomically more nutrition in eating wild varieties than there is store-bought. So we'll come back to that issue, but last week what we were doing was really maximizing nutrition by eating nature around us. So let's talk about colors. And I can, this is actually on a PowerPoint that's on, all my PowerPoints, or most of them are on slideshare.net/Patrick Garrett and then the number 7. And there should be like maybe 40 presentations on there, but one of them is called the Raw Experiment from the Clean Eating Challenge, and it has all these colors on there. And so I can post this, but let's go through it. So we always talk about eat the brightest, darkest, richest colors, and that theme will go over and over as we go through this. But I want to talk to you about why. So when you eat things that are red foods are full of resveratrol. It's also a gallic acid, and those two things are very anti-cancer, let alone great for the heart, but also anti-inflammatory. So when we talk about cholesterol doesn't cause heart attacks, inflammation does, that's where that red wine comes into, or the red grapes. Hey Rhonda, glad you can join. The other thing is they have quercetin in there. Quercetin is usually, I always think of like apples, like red apples, right? So red, and then also onions, or red or purple onions, and that's a very powerful anti-edema, naturally occurring medicine. So that is a powerful antioxidant, eliminates free radicals, protects and regenerates vitamin E, which is a great antioxidant. So that's where those two, now there's lots more, there's hundreds of biochemicals, and we've talked about that before, but just in general, the 2 or the 3 main ones for reds is the resveratrol, the gallic acid, and the quercetin. Then when it comes to oranges, or orange colors, they probably felt silly after they named the orange, right? And then they came to carrots and they're like, well, could we come out with orange part 2? So, I'm not sure about that. It's like naming slippers. So oranges have lots of carotenoids in there, right? And there's 40 different varieties, if not more by now. But those varieties actually go to your skin to help make vitamin A, which protects you from sun damage. Hey Kendra. So The best sunscreen is eating lots of brightly colored foods, but especially orange foods, because of those carotenoids. If you feed a baby too many too many carrots, not baby carrots, but carrots as a baby, they'll turn orange, and that's because all those carotenoids actually go directly to that skin, which provides vitamin A, which then dramatically decreases the risk of skin cancer. So the other thing about that too is we said it converts to vitamin A, which is a very powerful antioxidant, but it also improves eyesight. So eating those brightly colored things that look beautiful to the eyes will actually decrease or reverse or prevent those eye oxidative damages like cataracts and glaucoma and macular degeneration, which are all the same disease mechanism in different locations. So we just name it by the location. So it's just oxidative damage from lack of antioxidants, from lack of eating things that look beautiful to the eyes. Then you have yellows. So yellows have limonene in there, which, lime's green, right? But lemon, think lemon. But it has limonene in there, and those are very powerful anti-cancer molecules. It also has pinones in there, especially the tropical ones, think like papaya and maybe mangoes. Those pinones in there are very powerful anti-cancers too. Then you have greens, and greens have indole-3 carbinol, also thiocyanes, and those are very powerful anti-estrogens. So when you eat greens, they are decreasing all that estrogen dominance from the estradiol or E2 that you get from the birth control and from the hormone replacement therapy and the dairy, cheese and milk and all those high estradiols. So those greens dramatically prevent endometriosis and fibroids and PMS and breast cancer, uterine cancer, and for guys, breast cancer now, gynecomastia, and prostate problems. Greens are very potent in binding to carcinogens to prevent them from binding to your DNA to cause mutations. So greens tend to be one of the fewest things Americans eat. The average American only eats one fruit or vegetable a day. So we're definitely not eating variety, but we're not eating to reverse cancer, and that's the simplicity by which we reverse cancer. It's just those simple things like eating that green color. There's also isothiocyanates and then sulforanophanes, I think. And those reverse tumor development. So those specifically are helping prevent the growth of the tumor, just like we see with the anti-cancer part of the indole-3 carbinols. And then you have zeastaxanthin and lutein, which I believe is the highest in kale or spinach, but that dramatically reverses eye damage. So those are very expensive supplements, but they're free at dinner time. Well, you have to buy the food, but cheaper. So zeastaxanthin, which is typically think of like what turns crustaceans red, or why salmon is pink, or tuna is pink, but it's also very potent in greens. They also prevent macular degeneration, they protect the heart, prevent glaucoma, cataracts, all those things, all those oxidative damages. And then, of course, they're also rich in lots of minerals. Then the blues can make us happy, right? Hey, as you guys join too, we're talking about eating on the wild side. We're talking about maximizing your nutrition by the way that we cook, prepare, and choose foods. And right now we're kind of going over the colors, which is from the raw experiment talk that I did years ago, and I'll post this also for you guys. And so the blues are antibacterial. So one of the first things I came up with when I did research for gut infections, or kind of people have gut infections or overgrowth even, is blueberry soup. And I never thought about that. That seems weird to me, but apparently that was a thing. Now, as you guys have questions, feel free to post it. Please feel free to share this and like it. But blueberries are actually antibacterial. They're also anti-cancer. They improve eyesight, very powerful antioxidants. And really, bilberry, which is the English blueberry, is a very powerful antioxidant for preventing macular degeneration. So even when I went to go get my eyes checked at optometrist, I guess, the eye doctor. Hey Tim, glad to have you on. Every year he goes, and so every year my eyes get better or stay exactly the same, and he keeps trying to push he gets excited he's going to have to talk about bifocals. Not with me. So he never asks what I'm doing to reverse my eye damage, but when I was there though, they got a new machine and it tests for macular degeneration. So I thought, they said, well, it costs extra, and I was like, so I was kind of being a smart ass, like, well, what's the point? You can't reverse it. And the woman's like, oh my God, you can. There's these supplements, they have bilberry, they're so potent at reversing macular degeneration. It's awesome. And I was pretty amazed because, again, you don't typically expect to see your traditional eye doctor talking about reversing macular degeneration. They just kind of say, well, you're super screwed and let's slow it, you know. All right, so DJ has a question. Oh, yeah. DJ has a question. Can you elaborate on greens binding to cancer so that our DNA doesn't absorb it? Well, so you have all these things like fiber does this, greens do this, basically those micronutrients, fatty acids do this, like omega-3s, where they will actually bind to things that are like toxins or carcinogens, and then those then get processed through the liver or the kidneys and excreted out of our body, or even sweated out or breathed out. So they just have a chemical and then it helps bind to those carcinogens, and that's how we reduce it. I can, if you want like a more like longer detailed explanation, I can let you know. So blues, and then you have purple or indigo, which is full of lycopene or terpene. So again, think of like even like tomatoes when it comes to lycopene. Your purple wide variety ones are going to be better. But those, of course, prevent prostate cancer, so they're anti-estrogens. They, was the bad estrogens, the strong one like estradiols. And then they're also very good for heart protection. And for the most part, your purples are based on reds, so same kind of thing. Yeah, so DJ, yeah, they're binding to the cancer-causing chemicals, the carcinogens, not to cancer itself. Yeah. Now, the ones that are anti-cancer, they actually feed the processes, the anti-angiogenesis that cuts off the blood supply to the cancer. So, like Dr. Lee's work, How to Eat Your Way Out of Cancer, talks about the anti-angiogenic benefit of those, even greater than a lot of the medications that they use for anti-angiogenesis for cancer treatment. And then we have the whites. Holy crap, this just got super racist here. The whites. All right. So the whites are full of allyl sulfodides and then quercetins. And that's, think about like onions and potatoes. Mostly, onions and garlic. Onions and garlic. Very potent for fighting cancer and heart disease, antiviral, antibacterial. Like we say, garlic by itself has 100 active biochemicals against virus, parasite, fungus, and yeast. Hey, there's Brianna. So you would expect the same thing. They also help normalize cholesterol. They reduce blood pressure, improve circulation, and of course they detoxify carcinogens, just like we saw with the other ones. So what we're saying is red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, white. There's no white in the rainbow. The rainbow's racist. It's anti-white. All right. So all those colors dramatically change the chemical nutrition that you have. And when we talk about only average American eats one fruit or vegetable a day now, they should not have much anti-cancer fighting abilities and antioxidants. So they should have lots of oxidative damage, lots of heart disease, lots of eye damage, lots of quicker aging. Yeah, so it's not a big mystery there. So that's that simplicity. When you go to the store, and that's one of the things in the eating on the wild side, is you'll notice a lot of the colors play dramatically different, have higher nutritional content than the lighter colors or the whiter types of fruits and vegetables. So One interesting concept is we'll go through different foods here too. So let's start with tomatoes. All right, so I'm going to ask you guys, what is more nutritious? What has more nutrients in there? Now, tomatoes are red, so we're back to our chart again. But is it tiny tomatoes, like cherry tomatoes or grape tomatoes, or are they like the bigger ones, right? The beef tomatoes? I don't know what they're called. Which one is more nutritious? What do you guys think? And then the red we talked about was lycopene. I'll talk about a few things, but post those, right? What do you guys think? The small grape or cherry or the large beefsteak tomatoes? Which one has more nutrition? And I'll tell you this, though. So Lacey says the same. Vine-ripened ones are actually more nutritious. And Harvard did this study where they looked at vine-ripened tomatoes versus the store-bought tomato. Kendra says cherry. Brian says the smaller ones, more skin. Oh, thinking the small, but more skin. Marcia says Roma. That's probably in between. So the answer is the small ones. And actually, my other book, which, let me grab my other book. This was a great book, too. I heard about this on NPR Science Friday, and I read this. And I believe it's in here. Eating History. And so it talks about the 30 turning points in making American cuisine. This is a really fascinating book because all the stuff that we have today that's just kind of normal American diet, it wasn't always like that. And so that really surprised me. So this was really interesting to me. And I believe in there it talks about all tomatoes started as cherry tomatoes. And then hybridization and breeding techniques grew bigger and bigger tomatoes. So they would say, you have all these small tomatoes and then you have one large one that's a genetic mutant. Well, what if we breed the mutants and we get bigger tomatoes and then bigger tomatoes, bigger tomatoes? So basically, the larger tomatoes are the X-Men, they're the mutants of the cherry tomatoes. But the smaller is better. So I've been trying to tell girls this for a long time, that size matters, but it's smaller is better. Right? It's how you use the tomato, right? It's better for you. That's doesn't sound right. I need to take that off my Match.com, I think, description. All right, so smaller is better when it comes to fruits and berries, and that's about it. So they actually have more nutrition. Now, vine ripen actually has more nutrition too. So we're saying that Harvard has said that the average store-bought tomato is missing 241 vitamins, minerals, nutrients that are contained in a vine ripened. So the vine ripened usually takes a couple days later to get. So they'll tend to have a higher price because they have a higher chance of going bad. Hey, Pam's here too. There's Brianna. So vine ripen's worth the money. You're getting maximum amount of nutrition. Now the other thing is with transport, there's a great book called Tomato Land, which was on NPR. I think all my books are from NPR Science Friday. I don't actually read books usually. I just hear about them talk about on Science Friday. But I've looked at all the pictures in this one, and then which is most of my book reading. But I've actually read this one, so I have read books. Not bad for a Texas educated boy. But in Tomato Land, they talk about that tomatoes are picked green and hard, and that's the same as most fruits and vegetables now. But then they're gassed with methyl-ethylene gas, I believe, and then that ripens them very quickly. So your average tomato is picked green and super hard, but then they gas it and makes it soft and red so it looks like a vine-ripened tomato. And I was talking about this one time at a lecture, and one of the guys in the audience said, "Oh, that makes sense." And I was like, "Well, what do you mean?" And he said, "Well, I'm a trucker." And he said, "I pick these tomatoes up green and then drive them across the country, and by the time I get to, they pull these gas canisters and throw them in there, and then they close the door. And by the time they get to Dillon's or the grocery store, they're beautiful red, ripe tomatoes from these hard green ones." So the last 2 weeks of the ripening process is where you get the maximum amount of nutrition. So vine ripen is worth the money, and you can grow them yourselves, and then they totally are vine ripen. Processed tomatoes, though, often end up more nutritious. So if you can't, if you're picking these green tomatoes and now you have red ones, well, they're not going to survive. A ripe tomato is not going to survive the transport very well. So they just mash them into sauces and soups. So actually your processed tomato products tend to be more nutritious and more flavorful because they were vine ripened. That's where you'll see studies where ketchup is more nutritious than a store-bought tomato. But not ketchup with a bunch of sugar in there, and definitely not ketchup with corn syrup and other crap in there. So again, more maybe like Newman's Own tomato sauce would be more nutritious than a store-bought tomato. Do you guys know that? So, seems reasonable. A couple other things, though, is room temperature or refrigerator. Which is better for flavor and maximizing nutrition for your tomatoes? So, my daughter, I keep buying these tomatoes. And I like to buy the purple and dark colored ones, the mixed ones that are cherry tomato ones in those little containers because they're full. They're more nutritious, and they're actually full of more nutrition because they're darkly colored. But I keep putting them in the fridge because I in my head my guy brain says put everything in the fridge and it'll last longer. And that's my whole goal, is last longer, right? So I can shop once a week instead of every few days. Yeah, DJ was at that. DJ says, I think I was at that lecture once. Yeah, we talked about this years ago in class. So my daughter, Ellen, she keeps making me put the tomatoes on the counter because they're better. They're more nutritious and they're better flavor. Room temperature equals greater flavor for tomatoes. So don't buy them cold. And yeah, Brianna says the fridge dehydrates them. And the research shows that you get 50% less nutrition. Less than 50 degrees. Then the flavor molecules actually start breaking down. Yeah, so Kendra knows what's up, right? Room temperature. So Dad keeps doing it wrong. The teenage daughter knows everything and is telling him to do it right, and it turns out she's right. So, what the hell do I know? So, tomatoes should be room temperature for maximum amount of nutrition. And really, when it comes to fruits and vegetables and berries, you're really talking about eating them hopefully in the first few days for maximum amount of nutrition. But again, if you're eating them 3, 4, 5 days later, a week later, who gives a crap? You're still eating an amazing amount of nutrition. So don't let that discourage you from eating it. Just eat fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, berries, legumes, and greens, and then tighten it up a little bit. That's why we're talking about this today. And then cooking tomatoes ups the lycopene in there and quite a few other nutritions. So that makes them more bioavailable. That's where we get our slow cooked marineras are going to be even more nutritious. So that's pretty dope, right? I mean, they're vine ripened basically. They're made into a paste. They're cooked slowly, and then they're jarred. So you want it in a glass jar, not the can jar, unless it's murin. But the murin has copper, which then is going to displace your zinc, maybe. So you're still better off glass, like Newman's Own glass. Okay. So that slow cooked marinara should be the maximum amount of nutrition out of all this. But cook your tomatoes. So this morning I made, if you guys saw, I posted it, fried brown tomatoes. Those tomatoes, I slice those up, use brown rice flour, and they said use breadcrumbs, so I used nutritional yeast, which is amazing. And then salt and pepper. I don't think anything else. No Run DMC. I think it was just salt and pepper. And then in olive oil. And sauteed them medium. So, not converting the omega-3, the cis formation in those unsaturated oils into trans fats. like we talked about cooking too high, and they turned out amazing. It was really good. Well, Carrie joins us now from Australia, right? G'day, mate. So that was I liked listening to the old episode, last week's episode about that. For some reason, Carrie's Australian voice was exactly what I thought her voice would sound like in my head. So the Australian voice in my head was exactly how Carrie sounds. So then use everything, seeds and all. Now, when I was a kid, we would like take the seeds and juice out of the tomatoes. It was weird, but really the seeds, and really eat all your seeds. Eat your watermelon seeds, eat your tomato seeds. Today, I got some gigantic ass oranges from my friend, and they have seeds in there, and usually it's, oh my god, seeds. And I just chew them up, man. Chew them up. All those grape seeds, like people, oh, I'm not going to eat the seeds in the grape. Well, then you got to go to the health food store and buy the seeds, right? Grape seed extract. So eat all your seeds, especially watermelon seeds. All right, so tomatoes. Any questions about tomatoes that we didn't cover? So vine ripen is better. The darker colors are better. The organic's going to be better. Sauces are going to be probably mostly better, especially in glass. And then lightly cooking them or stewing them is even better. And then use all the tomato. So that's tomatoes. Then we have cruciferous vegetables. Cruciferous vegetables are some of the most anti-cancer things you can eat. They're also some of the most potent epigenetic foods. So they can change and restore normal DNA from mutated DNA. It is a wonderful food. It's also some of the most powerful anti-angiogenic foods to shut off blood vessel growths to cancer. So once you're grown, you shouldn't be making a bunch of new blood vessels. And so you tend to eat foods that prevent that or inhibit that. So then you can't have cancer growth because it can't steal the nutrients from your blood because you're eating anti-angiogenic foods. That sounds good, right? So cruciferous is not only like maximum amount of nutrition, but they're also very potent anti-cancer and very, very, very potent anti-angiogenic and epigenetic. So, cruciferous. The nutrition and flavor is time dependent on these. I bought some Brussels sprouts. I was just like, oh, I'm gonna make food later. And then it's 2 weeks later, and they did not look so good. So I did not eat them. So cruciferous vegetables, they're time dependent. So really, you want to get those either local if you can. Like farmers markets are great places to get the freshest nutrition there is. Down in Old Town where I work, there's a market every weekend. I think in the wintertime it goes inside, so year-round stuff, and it's seasonal. So farmers markets are some of the best places to get your cruciferous vegetables. Last week, Carrie was supposed to steal the broccoli that was growing in the garden, in the public garden or the nature center. I don't think she did it. And then keep it in a bag. So tomatoes we want to keep out on the cabinet, but cruciferous vegetables we actually maximize nutrition by preventing the oxidation of it, so preventing from getting enough air. So try to keep that in the bag. I always take my stuff out of the bag. I'm doing it all wrong. If I only had more teenage daughters to tell me how to do this. So like your cabbage and stuff, keep in a bag, keep it in the crisper. Apparently there's a reason that it's called a crisper, and it's for your vegetables, and I never use it for the right thing. So I always thought it was just a bullcrap thing, but apparently it's real. So, and then try to eat it right away. Buy in season, that should be easy enough, or steal from the garden, steal from the nature center. Yeah. Now, steaming cruciferous vegetables, so they're very crunchy, very hard. And so if you soften them up with a little bit of steaming, it actually makes more nutrition for you. And in fact, we always steam like carrots, which are bright orange, maybe the purple carrots. but also purple cabbage. So the color matters again. So light green cabbage is nutritious, super nutritious, but purple cabbage is amazingly more nutritious. And I would do this, and I would look at the water that was in the pan left, and it was this beautiful emerald green from the orange and from the purple cabbage. It just made this beautiful color, and I thought it's got to have an amazing amount of nutrition in there. So I let it cool off, and then I drank it, and it tasted like, cabbage, carrot water, watered down version. But I thought, it's got to be amazing. Maybe it should be like preserved for soups and sauces and stuff. And then I read this book, and in here, if you look at this is from, say, spinach, and this is from the water from the steamed spinach. The water was exponentially higher nutrition than the actual spinach. So I think that goes to say you should really use that for soups, or your smoothies. That'd be great for your smoothies. Okay, so lightly steaming maximizes nutrition. If you cook things at a high temperature for very long, they actually destroy the nutrients. It's at 118 degrees, it destroys the enzymes in there, which then makes you have to work harder to eat it because you have to rely on your actual enzymes. Now, some people that take antibiotics, they'll end up, some of those antibiotics will actually interfere with your own production through your pancreas and liver, and then it'll be hard to digest the raw food. So then you just take enzymes for a while, or lightly cook or steam them, and then eventually you'll up your enzymes back. So colors matter, red's the best. Now, this is kind of interesting. Now, white cauliflower, which we go back to our Kristen, white cauliflower is actually more anti-cancer than green or purple, which I wouldn't think that. I would think that the purple is more anti-cancer, but the darker colors have the more antioxidants. So for people with like heart disease prevention, macular degeneration, glaucoma, cataracts, darker colors. Always darker colors for eye conditions and heart conditions because of that antioxidants. So which do you choose, right? Do you eat the white, or you eat the green, or you eat the purple? What kind of nutrition do I want? And the reality is just kind of rotate it, or buy both and mix them up. Doesn't matter. So that's, if you eat cruciferous vegetables, you're not going to lose any way at all, because they're all crazy nutrition in epigenetics and cancer. And then kale, out of all the cruciferous vegetables, kale is the most bitter of all these. It's also one of the most nutritious. And I think kale, I believe, is the highest in zeaxanthin and lutein for the eyes to reverse eye damage diseases. So, you should eat it raw for the most nutrition, but since it's so bitter, you can lightly steam it. You can also make kale chips. You're taking something that's like this much nutrition and then making it that much nutrition, but you only need this much nutrition. So again, you're getting a maximum amount of nutrition by eating any form of kale. All right, what about legumes? Some people don't like legumes. It tends to be this gimmicky part of nutrition where, like FODMAPs and those kind of rabbit hole things, but that's not really true for most people. So with that, buy pods. So like if you buy edamame, right, buy organic edamame, which is soybeans, but if it's in the little case, it's actually more nutritious than the individual ones that are pieced out. And Van says, ooh. What do you say ooh about? Legumes? You're going to have to explain further on that. So you should also eat peas in the pods. You can eat the whole thing. Oh, come on, Van. So Van's like, ooh for legumes. They're great. They're awesome. I love eating edamame. All the girls love edamame. Organic edamame. But also the snap peas. Eat the whole thing. You get a tremendous amount of fiber in there versus just the peas. And then fresh ones are always better than frozen, and then canned. But try not to eat canned stuff because most of them use bisphenol A, which is a horrible estrogen, to preserve it, which they don't have to do, but it's profitable, so they do it. Color matters, so again, same thing with everything else. The darker the color, the sweeter the juice. You guys know what? That's an old saying. Steaming them and pressure cooking actually retains antioxidants. So, I wouldn't think that. I think pressure cooking ruins everything because it's high pressure, high heat. I don't know. But apparently it doesn't. Again, I like when I'm wrong about stuff, but okay, so Michelle says, who's Van's wife, says, don't listen to Van. And then Van says, no, I just don't. I like legumes, just not edamame. So, steaming and pressure cooking, awesome for legumes. Canned beans. Now, this was, again, kind of weird from the research in the book, right? Canned beans often have more nutrition because of the canning process. But, so Brianna says pressure cooking's lower heat. So I did not know that. I've never pressure cooked anything. I just know my aunt had a pressure cooker that blew up and then beans were everywhere in the kitchen. It was a big mess. Okay, so that's lower heat. So that would make more sense why they're more nutritious that way. So canned beans that are more nutritious are probably more of home canned beans rather than industrialized canned beans, because then you run the risk of the BPA that's in there. But you probably, if you're going to get canned beans at all, just get Simple Truth, organic ones that are simple. They only have like 2 ingredients, which is what you want. And then soaking dried beans can prevent digestive issues. So some people have problems with saponins or lectins, but the way you cook it should help take care of that. But also soaking raw beans or dried beans, you release these saponins, and saponins prevent the bugs from eating the beans. So you can take that saponin runoff, right? Wash your beans. That's why when you open a can of beans, there's suds in there, right? I always wondered that, but that's because of saponins, which make a soap, which is also, you can just use soap. But the saponins that are from dried beans, pour that in your plants. And then if you soak beans, take that water and pour that in your flower beds or in your plants, because those saponins actually help as a natural pesticide. Holy crap, man, time's flying fast. I'm never going to get through all this. I'll post my list on Facebook also. So, greens, color matters. We all kind of know this. I think out of everything, people know about their greens because they know head lettuce is not worth a crap, and then darker lettuce, of course, better. But head lettuce does have nutrition in there. It's just that the tighter the leaves are, and the less color is the less nutrition. So again, it's very little nutrition compared to, like, beet greens or something like that, which beet greens are more nutritious than beets. So soak the greens in cold water to preserve nutrients. Now, one of my ex-girlfriends works in produce. I try to date like the produce girl, and then I try to date the kombucha girl. No, I'm just making shit up here. So, but one of the things that you do is you chop it off and you put it in really cold water, and then that stiffens up, and then it looks better for the produce aisle. But you can do that at home too. They say don't chop everything, but really, out of nutrition, that's not going to be the least problematic. But you can take that end of like the romaine and just twist off the head. And you're supposed to tear up all the leaves into like bite-sized little chunks, and then you get the maximum amount of nutrition from that. So you could also just chop it up and have the same way and just be done with your meal. So if you're going to make salad that's going to last longer, right, you're going to have it in the fridge for a couple days, tear it up more so than chopping it up. And I will say a couple things too, is ugly fruits and vegetables have more nutrition in them. Plants that have, like, you can see where the bugs attacked it, if the plant won, it actually uses or has more nutrition. It uses antioxidants and other nutrients that benefit you to ward off the infections from bugs and worms and that kind of thing. So, ugly is better. Smaller's better. Ugly's better. I think I got my match description figured out here. Color's better. Tan. All right, so tear them up. They'll increase antioxidant content because that's how the plant protects himself. Okay, wait. DJ says, I date Subway workers and Jimmy John's. Good qualities. Yeah, see? Keep airtight in the crisper drawer. So again, that mythical drawer in the kitchen that's called the crisper drawer apparently keeps things crisp, I guess. And keep it airtight, so keep it in the bag. That's one thing I do. I probably always keep it in the bag or the little box. Yeah. And then bitter greens, if the greens are really bitter, so of course we said kale's super bitter, mix it with something sweet. So a healthy like vinaigrette that's like fruit based, like a raspberry vinaigrette, or avocados help with that. Mixing it with other greens that are less bitter will make a dramatic difference for that too. So that's where I like that spring mix, organic spring mix, loose leaf. So they'll have all kinds of endive and other greens in there. So it's kind of a mix of different flavors, and it's not all bitter like you might get like a kale, and then you get baby kale because it's less. Spinach is your sweetest one, which juiced spinach and mango is like amazing, but you really shouldn't be juicing anything. And the other thing is olive oil based salad dressings, omega-3 rich based salad dressings. DG says eat at home. They make sandwiches. What? And then Marcia, lettuce good on big glass sun tea jar in the fridge. Okay, Marcia, you're going to have to explain that. Lettuce is... You put the lettuce in the jar? Keep it fresh? You have to explain that one, Marcia. All right. And then, so greens, amazing. And we said, when we talked about greens for the colors, we said that's probably the most beneficial nutrients. I mean, they have the maximum amount of nutrition in there. Anti-cancer. So again, most people don't think of salads as being anti-cancer, but they prevent carcinogens from binding. They reverse tumor development, prevent macular degeneration and glaucoma and cataracts and awesome stuff. Okay, so Marcia says she puts her greens in the jar to protect it from oxidation. So that's good. And then DJ says, tea lettuce. Tea is leaves, so tea technically may be lettuce, right? Maybe. All right. So keeping it airtight, that's good in a jar. I haven't thought about that. Which, some people make those little salad shakers in the mason jars. So that's they might make 2 or 3 of those. But yeah, I guess if they're tightening that down, they're preserving those, preventing oxidation in there. And then onions. The more pungent an onion is, the more benefits. And before we finish, I want to go through some of these charts and show you some of these too. But the sweet onions tend to be less nutritious. But again, we're still talking about maximum nutrition. So yeah, ketchup is a smoothie. It is a smoothie. Isabella says dandelion greens. Yeah, those are amazingly nutritious. So that's really good too. So the same thing, keep them loose, put them in the crisper, airtight, put them in a jar. I never thought about that. That's a great idea. And then, Isabella, dandelion greens are free. You don't have to go to the health food store to get those. They're in the neighbor's yard. Yeah. All right, shallots are very potent nutrition. And so I was making food the other night, and I was just like, what the hell's a shallot anyways? And so I'm like looking in the store trying to figure out where the shallots are. And I think they're just tiny onions. So scallions, I think, are tiny, or a different type of like chive. I don't know. But shallots are very, very potent nutrition. So I always like to put a little shallots. I got a whole thing of them. I put shallots in my roasted vegetables and my... I need to start adding it to my ceviche. And then leeks, which are like giant green onions, and chives, use the bulb and everything. And really, I mean, again, maximizing nutrition. You should eat the whole damn carrot. people chopping off both ends. I grew up doing that. Chop off both ends, right? And you're like losing this much on each. And then I was like, well, I'll just get better and chop just a tiny little part. And now I'm just like, well, screw it. Just eat the whole thing. Even if there's a long little root at the end, man, eat that root too. The hell, right? It's all full of nutrition. So eat the whole damn thing. So same thing with the onion. The actual skin is super nutritious too. So onion skin is very healthy. And there, you can actually buy that as a supplement. But hard to eat. So I usually take the skin off. But. All right, so potatoes. What about the potatoes? Everybody hates potatoes because they think it makes them fat. But Americans eat 150 pounds of sugar. Keep adjusting my glasses. Maybe that's my tail sign, like if I play poker. He's lying. Potatoes are healthy. Right? So with potatoes, the color matters. So the darker the color, the better it is. Now, white potatoes are kind of like your head lettuce. It does have nutrition in there. Again, the outer part's brown. It's full of great nutrition in there. And in fact, I think it's 50% of the entire antioxidant nutrition of a potato is actually in the skin. So, Carrie says she loves potatoes, and Boris says he loves purple potatoes, which are awesome. And DJ ain't trash talking nobody's potatoes. So I watched some Polish thing or Russian thing, but they used potatoes as currency. This guy was selling stuff, and it was just like, that'll be 5 potatoes, and then he'd sell the potatoes. So I don't know. So purple potatoes, but sometimes they're purple on the outside, white on the inside. That's the skin's more nutritious than the brown one. But then a purple potato that's purple on the inside is even more nutritious. And what's funny is I think they derived from South America in my eating history book, and nobody would buy them in the English colonies because they're ugly. And then suddenly now everybody wants to buy these purple potatoes and sweet potatoes and yams, all these kind of things. So the skin has 50% of the entire potato's antioxidants, so always eat the skin on. When you make mashed potatoes, skin on. Better at the farmer's market. Always store in a cool, dark place with lots of air. I kept potatoes in the cabinet, and then I smelled something super gross a long time later, and they had turned to like mush. It was super gross. And now nothing goes in that cabinet except for a ton of baking soda because it still reeks. So if you know how to get that rotted potato smell out, let me know. Tried vinegar and baking soda, and it's still gross. I'm not putting anything in that cabinet. So now I keep my potatoes on the counter, so I remember to eat my potatoes. So, I don't know. Same thing. The smaller potatoes are the better ones. So like I have these little purple dark ones that are purple all the way through. I don't know what those are called, but they're small ones. I have those, and so like today when I posted my food, I made those roasted vegetables. Those were those purple little potatoes. So even more nutrition because they're purple, but even more nutrition because they're smaller. Yeah, Michelle says there's nothing nastier than rotten potatoes. Oh my God, it stunk so bad. So bad. In fact, we couldn't figure out where all these damn fruit flies were coming in the house. I mean, we just have fruit flies and fruit flies and fruit flies, and we couldn't get rid of them. And one day I was cleaning out the closet, and apparently my daughter had put, I think, potatoes. I don't know what it was, but something was in these backpacks. And when I dumped the backpack out, it landed on the floor and just splattered. But I think it was a potato, and it had been there all summer, and it was just disgusting. Super gross. Kids are awesome. Kids are great. Now, yams, people eat yams, but yams in America typically are just sweet potatoes. We don't know any better. So, yams actually are very potent in phytoestrogens and wonderful for building progesterone. Sweet potatoes also. But just, we call yams sweet potatoes, but they're not the same thing. And then eat more sweet potatoes because, again, the darker it is, the more nutrition there is. Ugh, Michelle says her girls did that with oranges. Oh, it's so gross. And new potatoes, so a lot of times people are like, I can't eat potatoes because they're high glycemic. Well, nobody got fat off potatoes. We get fat because we eat 150 pounds of sugar, and then we tell people not to eat fruit and potatoes. But New potatoes are the lower glycemic ones. So new potatoes, they're smaller ones. The big white potatoes, the bigger, the whiter it is, the more glycemic it is. I could just think about like cannibals talking about like that. Don't eat the white people, they're all high glycemic. So, eat more sweet potatoes. If you're going to eat yams, try to get real yams. Keep them in a dark place, which I don't do because I forget them. And then carrots and roots, no baby carrots. Baby carrots are not as nutritious and they're not real. I watched that on How's It Made on that show, and they just cut the ends of the carrots off, and then they basically sand them down to all uniform sizes, and that's a baby carrot. They're not real. But if you do, like we used to do this with my girls, if you bite a real carrot, like a big carrot, you can bite it and you can pull it, and there's actually a baby carrot inside the carrot. There's a carrot inside the carrot. So when you see the end, there's that circle, and then there's the bigger part, right? That circle goes all the way through, and my goal was always to break off as much as the carrot to where you only were left with that middle carrot. So that's your goal. You guys gotta discover the middle carrot and then post that. I love doing that. And maybe you'll get them to eat more carrots. Which apparently my middle daughter, that's all she wants to eat is carrots for every meal. I don't know. Steamed carrots and baked carrots are more flavorful. It basically enhances the sugar content in that. Color, the darker, so the purple carrots are even more nutritious than the yellow carrots. And then, of course, parsnips are white, but I think parsnips have quite a bit of nutrition in them, too. With beets are wonderful reversing heart disease along with all these things because they're full of arginine, which is stores the nitrous oxide in your skin. And then when you go outside, you have to go outside, and then it releases nitrous oxide and blood vessels dilate and blood pressure drops, and then you don't have those problems. So eat your beets. But beet greens are more nutritious than the actual beets. Cooking beets equals more nutrition, just like we did with the brassicas, because again they're hard and crunchy. I'd assume the same thing for like jicama and stuff like that. And then our last thing as we finish up here are fruits. Again, fruits do not make you fat. Fruits do not make you diabetic. Sugar, 150 pounds of added sugar to our diet in 50 different names, is what causes us to be fat and diabetic, not fruit. So, one of the things from the University of Colorado is that when you eat fruit and berries, which are sweet, 80% of that sugar binds to the fiber that you don't digest, and we call that fructooligosaccharides or prebiotics. So as we said, most Americans aren't eating fruits or vegetables. They drink a lot of juice, which has more sugar than soda does. And then that means they don't get their fiber, so then they're high risk of cancer. So then they buy the fiber to feed their gut bacteria so they can make butyrate, which then feeds DNA polymerase, which then edits out mutations. So basically, we don't eat the fiber, and then we buy the fiber back as a supplement. So that's nice. America! So, color matters. Oh, sorry. So 80% of those sugar. So it only 20% actually becomes blood sugar. So color matters. So always eat the darkest, richest color. So again, that's where bilberry and blueberry are so powerful for reversing eye damage. But of course, red and yellow and all those other colors. And holy crap, if you eat mulberries, they're free. And then eat the skin. It actually doubles the benefit, just like we see with potatoes. Organic only, as much as you can, and wild varieties is exponentially more nutritious. So try to eat fruit off the grid, and that's where let's see if I can't find that real quick as we're talking. But if you find like an apple tree in a neighbor's yard, it's so much more nutritious than if you buy it at the store. So we have to look under fruit. Oh, here we go, apples. Yeah. So try to eat the wild varieties, and I'll show you this with that. Apple sprek good. Ein apple? Oh, here we go. So, we can look at this chart here. Now I figured out how to flip this video around, so I think you guys can read all this stuff. But, well, if I can see here. Sorry. Different direction. There we go. So you have your main apples, the modern varieties here, which is what we eat. Very little nutrition, even though it's a lot. But here's your wild versions over here. Exponentially more nutrition with those. So steal those apples out in the yard. So those small ones that you saw, that's the Ginger Gold, the Golden Delicious, the Red Delicious, the Fuji, Granny Smith, Gala. All those are this much nutrition compared to that much from the wild varieties. So we have a pear tree out in the playground in the park, and we always steal the pears. Exponentially more nutrition than if you bought it in the store. So eat off the grid. If you buy cider, which you probably shouldn't, it's just juice, it should be cloudy. That means there's good fiber in there. Pulp, you always want pulp. If you're going to drink some juice, get some pulp. And then cooked berries are twice as nutritious as raw berries. So again, maximizing nutrition by a little bit of cooking. And we also said that blueberry soup, which I'm still not sure is a real thing, is antibiotic. So it kills off all the overgrowth or SIBO bacteria. And then, of course, it kills the bad bacteria too. And then eat your berries fresh or freeze them. So this is one of those wonderful things you can do at the health food store. Is if you see berries or lettuce or fruits that are, they'll put them like $1 for a bag, right? Buy those, chop those bad boys up, and put them in the freezer. And so you bought, $8 or $12 worth of fruits or vegetables or berries for $1, and then you got smoothie mix. If your greens ever start to go bad, chop them up and put them in the freezer as smoothie ingredients. So that way you're not wasting it. And then, so eat them fresh or freeze them. Don't let them go bad. And then farmer's market or picking at a farm where you go and pick are the best. So again, you're getting fresh off the vine. A lot of times you can go to those farms at night, and I think you get a pick for free. That's what I've been doing. I don't know if that's real or not. There's no sign that says you can't pick at night, so I think that's okay. Just tell them Dr. G says it's okay. Okay, so as we wrap things up, that's crazy. We just talked about the stupid fruit. That's went so fast. Eat all your seeds. Thawing reduces nutrition for frozen vegetables. Microwaving destroys almost all the nutrition. Cooking at high temperature destroys the enzymes in nutrition. And then let's look at this. I want to show you a few things out of this book. So again, we're talking about eating on the wild side. And it's by Joe Robinson, who just, there's like 3,000 articles went into this, research articles to write this book. But you can see here the different types of, was this onions? Different types of onions and their nutritional difference of those. So by knowing this, you then can go to the grocery store and make dramatically better choices when it comes to nutrition. Especially if you're trying to reverse something specific. So instead of taking antioxidants, what if I could just buy a lot better antioxidants or cook and prepare better? So this is kind of interesting. If you look at potatoes, okay, somewhere, I have to stand up. Okay, there we go. Okay, so you can see that the typical potatoes have the least amount of nutrition, but even that purple potato, that's the third one over from the left side, still isn't as nutritious as the one on the left, or the far left. So that purple Peruvian, that is like crazy amount more nutrition there. So I think that's pretty awesome. And then of course here was this carrots, So your purple and yellow carrots are more nutritious than purple and orange versus just the basic colors of them. So purple, yellow, I would think was less nutritious than purple, orange, but it actually turns out that it's more nutritious. So now, it was really hard to find those, but now you can find those a lot easier. And then the way you cook in here too, so just cooking with raw, if I can find it, raw versus a little bit of oil versus cooked with oil, dramatic difference in nutrition with that. So that means that kind of mirepoix thought with that too. But always use a little bit of oil when you cook your carrots, and you'll get exponentially greater beta-carotene, which means prevention of things like skin cancer, let alone glaucoma and cataracts and all those things. And last couple things as we wrap this up, I love this book. I just love this book. So I love how they put this here. Oh, this is legumes and dried peas and beans. And look at lentils. Lentils are your powerhouse, right? Compared to like green peas and chickpeas. I thought green peas would be higher. But lentils are amazing. And they're like 80% of your folate for your mood. So that's awesome. Yeah, so Carrie says, I thought raw was more nutritious. And some things it is. Some things raw is more nutritious than cooked's more nutritious for other things. It tends to, I think, be the harder something is, the better it is cooked. But that's not true for berries either. I guess it doesn't fit a formula here. And this is where raw versus boiled versus steamed for antioxidants. Again, I would think that raw would have the most antioxidants, but it turns out that steamed is the most nutrition you can get for antioxidants. So when preparing that food, you get exponentially more. Now, that being said, again, if you just ate raw vegan, you're going to be super healthy, just like every animal that eats raw vegan. But if you're trying to overcome a condition, this is where those things play out. Of like, okay, should I buy these supplements or should I just cook and prepare my food differently? Well, hell, you're already buying the food, make it more nutritious. All right, so I'll stop at that. But this is the book, Eating on the Wild Side, Joe Robinson. And frankly, I think this is what me and Carrie were doing last week, where we were seriously eating on the wild side, maximizing nutrition. We should have lightly steamed because someone yelled at me online about I'm not supposed to eat the plants raw. I need to prepare them and all this stuff. But I'm a guy, I'm dad. You just grab dandelions and eat them. The hell do I know? So, anyways, I love this. Okay, because again, it's not costing more to prepare it differently. All right, closing thoughts as we wrap it up, because the hour went by like super fast. When in doubt, eat fruit, vegetable, nut, seed, berry, legume, and green. Raw, lightly cooked, steamed. And eat the rainbow, a variety of colors, so you can keep track of what am I eating. Am I eating, like, most Americans eat white and brown now. That's all they eat, right? And one fruit or vegetable a day. So we should be just riddled with cancer, which the risk is now 1 in 1 for Americans for cancer, born after 2010. So, it's not a question of why do we have these conditions. When you look at those colors of what they do and you look at how we prepare food and what we're actually eating, yeah, we should probably be sick and dying prematurely. So, it's not a big surprise. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed that. I thank you guys for being here. Please share this with your friends and family. These are simple, free things that, again, are, life-changing. The other book that you ought to read, too, is Eating History. Because, again, I read very few actual books from cover to cover. This book was amazing to me. This book, all I had to do was look at the charts and read the summary. So at the end of each chapter, it tells you all the rundown of like, here's what you really need to know for buying and preparing each of those categories. That's the kind of book I need. That's a guy book. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it, okay? Our next episode is our 100th episode, apparently, and that sure went awfully quick. And we're going to have Holly back on. I saw her the other day, so we got to get that done. And it'll be a surprise what the episode's about because we don't know what it's about yet because she's crazy busy at the Y as the director of what is she? Corporate Wellness, Director of Corporate Wellness. And I'm the Director of Patient Wellness here, so, you know, everybody's busy. So we'll figure it out. If you guys have suggestions of what should we talk about for the 100th episode, please let me know. And again, I'm behind on answering questions, but please post your questions. I will answer them offline. I promise. I'm just behind, and we'll get it done. And I thank you guys so much for being a part of this. And I love you guys, and just have a great week, and we'll see you guys next week. And that's it. Bye, you guys. Oh, not that button. Oh.